The Dark Web Unmasked. Chapter 1, Shadows of the Past. The rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the windows of Emily Dawson's cramped apartment. She sat hunched over her laptop, the dim light from the screen casting eerie shadows on the walls. The glow illuminated her determined face, dark circles under her eyes betraying countless sleepless nights. Emily had always been a night owl, but tonight was different. Tonight, she was hunting. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, tracing digital breadcrumbs through the labyrinth of the dark web. She had spent years honing her skills as an investigative journalist, uncovering corruption and bringing justice to the unseen corners of society. But this time, it was personal. Her sister, Sarah, had been murdered 3 years ago. The police had never found the killer, and the case had gone cold. The lack of closure gnawed at Emily, a constant ache in her chest. She had thrown herself into her work, using her investigative talents to chase leads the police had abandoned. It was on one of these late-night searches that she stumbled upon a hidden website, a community of serial killers sharing their gruesome secrets. Her heart raced as she delved deeper, the horror of what she was uncovering tempered by the flicker of hope that she might find Sarah's killer among them. Emily knew she had to tread carefully. These were not just ordinary criminals, they were predators, lurking in the darkest corners of the internet. As she navigated the site's encrypted forums, a name kept appearing, the Puppeteer. The site's leader, shrouded in mystery, was revered by the other members. Emily's instincts told her that if anyone knew the truth about Sarah's death, it was the Puppeteer. She spent weeks gathering information, creating a digital persona that would allow her to infiltrate the group. She posed as a novice killer, eager to learn and earn their trust. The ruse was a dangerous game, one that could cost her everything, but Emily was determined. She wouldn't rest until she found justice for Sarah. Her phone buzzed, startling her from her thoughts. It was a text from Mark, a jaded detective who had been chasing serial killers for years. They had formed an uneasy alliance, bound by a shared obsession with catching the monsters that preyed on the innocent. Mark was one of the few people who knew the depths of Emily's determination. Got a lead. Meet me at the usual place, the text read. Emily grabbed her coat and headed out into the storm. The city was a sprawling urban landscape, its streets slick with rain and shadows. She made her way to a rundown diner, its neon sign flickering in the night. Inside, Mark was waiting at their usual booth, a cup of black coffee in front of him. "What's the lead?" Emily asked, sliding into the seat across from him. Mark's eyes were tired but sharp. He slid a folder across the table. "Found a connection between some recent murders and the site you're investigating. Victims all had similar wounds, matching the MO of one of the users you've been tracking." Emily opened the folder, her heart sinking as she saw the photos inside. More victims, more lives destroyed by the monsters she was hunting. But it also meant she was on the right track. "Thanks, Mark. This helps," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "Be careful, Emily. These people are dangerous. Don't get in too deep," Mark warned. Emily nodded, but she knew she was already in too deep. There was no turning back now. As she left the diner and stepped back into the rain, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would find the Puppeteer, and she would bring him to justice. For Sarah, and for all the victims who deserved to have their stories told. Chapter 2, The Puppeteer's Web. Back in her apartment, Emily dove deeper into the digital underworld. She had to make contact with the Puppeteer, but it wouldn't be easy. The enigmatic leader was elusive, only communicating through encrypted messages and hidden channels. Emily's digital persona, Shadow Hunter, had to prove herself worthy of his attention. She started by participating in the forum discussions, sharing gruesome stories and tips she had gleaned from her research. The community was a twisted network of killers, each more depraved than the last. Emily's stomach churned as she read their posts, but she forced herself to engage, to become one of them. Weeks passed, and Emily's persistence paid off. She caught the attention of a user named Raven, one of the Puppeteer's lieutenants. Raven was known for his brutal efficiency and sadistic methods. Emily knew that gaining his trust was her best shot at reaching the Puppeteer. "Impressive work, Shadow Hunter," Raven messaged her one night. "The Puppeteer has taken an interest in you." Emily's heart raced as she read the message. This was it, her chance to get closer to the leader. She replied carefully, maintaining her cover while expressing her eagerness to learn from the best. Raven set up a meeting in a private chat room, and Emily prepared herself for the encounter. She knew she had to be convincing, to make them believe she was one of their own. As the chat room opened, a new message appeared. "Welcome, Shadow Hunter," the Puppeteer's message read. "I've been watching you." Emily's hands trembled slightly as she typed her response. "Thank you. I'm honored to have your attention. You have potential. But potential means nothing without action. Prove yourself and you will be rewarded," the Puppeteer replied. Emily's mind raced. She had to come up with a plan, something that would convince them she was serious. She couldn't risk blowing her cover now. "I have a target in mind," she typed, the lie slipping easily from her fingers. "Someone who needs to be silenced." "Good. Send me the details," the Puppeteer ordered. Emily hesitated for a moment before fabricating a story about a corrupt businessman she had targeted. She provided just enough details to make it believable, hoping they wouldn't see through her ruse. "Interesting choice," the Puppeteer replied. "Make it clean. And remember, we're always watching." The chat room closed, and Emily let out a shaky breath. She had taken the first step, but the real challenge was yet to come. She needed to maintain her cover while gathering evidence, all without crossing the line herself. Days turned into weeks as Emily continued her investigation. She met with Mark regularly, sharing what she had learned and strategizing their next moves. The more she uncovered, the more dangerous her mission became. The Puppeteer's network was vast, and the killers were always one step ahead. One night, as Emily sifted through the forum posts, she found a thread that chilled her to the bone. It was a discussion about a recent murder, one that bore striking similarities to Sarah's death. Her heart pounded as she read the details, her mind racing with possibilities. Could the Puppeteer have been involved in Sarah's murder? The thought made her blood run cold. She needed answers, and fast. She reached out to Raven, asking for a private conversation. When he agreed, she steeled herself for the confrontation. "I need information," she typed. "About a murder that happened 3 years ago." "Why the sudden interest?" Raven replied. "It was personal. I need to know if the Puppeteer was involved," Emily responded, her fingers trembling. There was a long pause before Raven replied. "I'll see what I can find out. But tread carefully, Shadow Hunter. You're playing a dangerous game." Emily knew he was right. But she couldn't stop now. She had to find out the truth, no matter the cost. Chapter 3, The Rabbit Hole. The days that followed were a blur of tension and anticipation. Emily waited anxiously for Raven's response, each passing hour feeling like an eternity. She threw herself into her work, gathering more information and strengthening her cover as Shadow Hunter. But the weight of her sister's unsolved murder loomed over her, a constant reminder of why she was doing this. Finally, a message from Raven appeared. "I have some information. Meet me in the usual chat room tonight." Emily's heart pounded as she logged into the chat room. She had been preparing for this moment, but the reality of it was overwhelming. She took a deep breath and entered the room, her fingers poised over the keyboard. "Shadow Hunter, are you there?" Raven's message appeared. "I'm here," Emily replied, her hands steady despite the turmoil inside her. "The Puppeteer was involved in the murder you're asking about." "It was one of his early works," Raven revealed. Emily's blood ran cold. She had suspected it, but hearing it confirmed was a different matter. She forced herself to stay calm, to keep her emotions in check. "Do you have more details?" she asked, her heart racing. "Not much. But the puppeteer keeps records. If you can find his archive, you'll find what you're looking for," Raven responded. "Where can I find it?" Emily pressed. "That's for you to discover. I've already risked too much by telling you this," Raven replied before logging off. Emily stared at the screen, her mind racing. The puppeteer's archive. It was the key to everything. But finding it would be a monumental task, one that would require all her skills and resources. She met with Mark the next day, sharing the new information. He listened intently, his expression grave. "We need to find that archive," Emily said, determination in her voice. Mark nodded. "But we have to be careful. If they suspect you, we're both dead." "I know," Emily replied. "But this is our best shot at getting the evidence we need to take them down." They spent hours planning their next move, poring over the information they had gathered and strategizing their approach. Emily knew it was a race against time. The puppeteer's network was vast, and any slip-up could be fatal. As she returned to her apartment, Emily felt a mixture of fear and resolve. She was closer than ever to finding her sister's killer, but the dangers were mounting. She logged into the dark web, determined to find the archive. Days turned into weeks as she searched, following every lead and deciphering cryptic messages. She felt like Alice in Wonderland, falling deeper into a twisted rabbit hole. The more she uncovered, the more she realized the extent of the puppeteer's reach. Finally, she found a clue. A hidden link buried deep within the forum, leading to an encrypted database. Emily's heart raced as she clicked the link, her screen filling with lines of code. She knew she had found the archive. But accessing it wouldn't be easy. The encryption was sophisticated, designed to keep out all but the most skilled hackers. Emily's fingers flew over the keyboard, her mind focused on the task at hand. Hours passed as she worked, her surroundings fading into the background. Finally, she cracked the code. The database opened, revealing a trove of information. Emily's eyes widened as she scanned the files, each one a testament to the puppeteer's crimes. She found the file she was looking for, her sister's murder. Her hands trembled as she opened it, her heart pounding in her chest. The details were gruesome, but they confirmed what she had suspected. The puppeteer had orchestrated Sarah's death, using it as a stepping stone to his twisted empire. Tears blurred Emily's vision as she read, the pain of her sister's loss crashing over her. But beneath the grief was a fierce determination. She had the evidence she needed. Now, it was time to take the puppeteer down. Chapter 4, A Dangerous Game. With the evidence in hand, Emily and Mark began planning their next move. They needed to act quickly and decisively, before the puppeteer or his followers realized what they were up to. Emily knew that exposing the network would require more than just a single file. They needed to dismantle it from the inside out. Emily continued her undercover work, maintaining her persona as Shadow Hunter. She fed information to Mark, who used it to build a case against the killers. But the deeper she went, the more dangerous it became. The puppeteer was growing suspicious, his messages to her becoming more probing and direct. One night, as Emily navigated the forum, a new message appeared from the puppeteer. "Shadow Hunter, we need to talk. Join the private chat room now." Emily's heart pounded as she entered the chat room. She had been preparing for this moment, but the reality of it was nerve-wracking. "Shadow Hunter, your recent activities have raised some questions," the puppeteer began. "I'm here to learn and contribute," Emily replied, keeping her tone steady. "If there's a problem, I want to address it. Trust is earned, not given. Prove your loyalty by completing a task for me," the puppeteer ordered. Emily's stomach churned. She had been dreading this moment, knowing it would come eventually. She needed to buy time, to find a way out without compromising her cover. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her fingers trembling. "A target has been identified. You will eliminate them and provide proof," the puppeteer replied, sending her a file with the target's details. Emily's mind raced as she read the file. She couldn't go through with it, but she needed to make it look like she was complying. She concocted a plan, one that would hopefully satisfy the puppeteer without crossing the line. "I'll take care of it," she typed, forcing herself to remain calm. "Good. And remember, we're always watching," the puppeteer warned before logging off. Emily took a deep breath, her mind whirling with possibilities. She needed to stage the target's death convincingly, without actually harming them. She contacted Mark, explaining the situation. "We need to fake this," she said. "Create a scenario that looks real enough to fool them." Mark agreed, and they spent hours planning the fake hit. They enlisted the help of a trusted contact, someone who could play the role of the target. It was a risky move, but it was their only option. The night of the fake hit, Emily was a bundle of nerves. She watched from a distance as Mark and their contact staged the scene. Everything had to go perfectly. She took photos and videos, documenting the hit from every angle. When it was done, she uploaded the evidence to the dark web, sending it to the puppeteer. Her heart raced as she waited for his response. "Well done, Shadow Hunter," the puppeteer replied. "You have proven yourself. We will talk again soon." Emily let out a shaky breath, relief flooding through her. She had bought herself more time, but she knew the clock was ticking. She needed to act quickly to bring down the network. Chapter 5, The Puppeteer's Mask. With her cover intact, Emily intensified her efforts to gather evidence. She spent hours poring over the database, documenting every detail and cross-referencing it with unsolved cases. The scale of the puppeteer's operation was staggering, a web of death and destruction that spanned the globe. As she delved deeper, she uncovered more about the puppeteer himself. He was meticulous, always staying several steps ahead of anyone trying to track him. But Emily was determined to unmask him. She had already sacrificed too much to back down now. Her breakthrough came when she found a hidden folder within the database. It contained personal notes and messages, a glimpse into the puppeteer's mind. Emily's pulse quickened as she read through the files, piecing together his real identity. She discovered that the puppeteer was a man named Richard Cole, a tech genius with a dark past. He had used his skills to create the network, manipulating and controlling the killers like a master puppeteer. But his arrogance was his weakness. He had left behind just enough clues for Emily to find him. Armed with this new information, Emily and Mark prepared for their final move. They needed to act swiftly, coordinating with law enforcement to ensure Cole couldn't slip away. Emily's hands trembled with a mix of fear and anticipation as they set the plan in motion. The night of the raid, Emily watched from a safe distance as police stormed Cole's hideout. She held her breath, praying that everything would go smoothly. Gunshots echoed in the night, followed by the sound of shouting and chaos. Finally, the police emerged, dragging a handcuffed Richard Cole with them. Emily's heart soared with triumph as she saw the man who had caused so much pain brought to justice. But the victory was bittersweet. As Emily and Mark debriefed, they realized that Cole had anticipated their move. He had set a trap, one that had cost them dearly. Mark had been injured in the raid, and several officers had lost their lives. Emily's hands shook as she processed the news. She had achieved her goal, but at a terrible cost. The puppeteer's network was dismantled, but the scars it had left would never fully heal. Chapter 6, Unmasking the Past. In the aftermath of the raid, Emily found herself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. The relief of finally catching the puppeteer was tempered by the loss and chaos that had ensued. She visited Mark in the hospital, his injuries a stark reminder of the cost of their mission. "You did good, Emily," Mark said, his voice weak but resolute. "We got him. That's what matters." Emily nodded, her eyes misting with tears. But at what cost? People died, Mark. You almost died. It's the nature of the job, Mark replied. We knew the risks going in. And now, thanks to you, countless lives have been saved. Emily tried to take solace in his words, but the guilt weighed heavily on her. She returned to her apartment, the rain still falling relentlessly outside. She sat at her desk, staring at the files she had collected. Among them was the file on her sister's murder, the evidence that had led her to this point. She opened the file, reading through the details once more. The puppeteer's meticulous planning, the brutal execution. It was all there, a stark reminder of the darkness she had been fighting against. But now, with Cole behind bars, she could finally begin to heal. As days turned into weeks, Emily focused on helping the police untangle the remaining threads of the puppeteer's network. The survivors' stories were harrowing, their gratitude a small balm to her wounded soul. She received messages from families who had found closure, their loved ones' killers brought to justice. It was these moments that reminded her why she had pursued this dangerous path. One evening, as she was sorting through her notes, a knock on the door startled her. She opened it to find a young woman standing there, her eyes filled with tears. Are you Emily Dawson? The woman asked. Yes, Emily replied, her curiosity piqued. The woman took a deep breath. I'm Sarah's best friend, Rachel. I heard what you did. I just wanted to thank you, for everything. Emily felt a lump in her throat. Thank you, Rachel. Sarah was my sister. I had to do it, for her and for all the victims. Rachel nodded, tears streaming down her face. She would be so proud of you, Emily. You brought her killer to justice. They talked for hours, sharing memories of Sarah and finding solace in each other's company. For the first time in years, Emily felt a sense of peace. The journey had been long and painful, but it had led her to this moment.